electronic.
Okay, so we're here with Kalson, aka Vlad, the electronic music or electro music producer, I should say. We're That's important to get across because that's what we're going to be talking about today: electro music. How's it going, Vlad?
Hi, Stuart. Thanks for having me. It's pleasure speaking with you today. It's great. So busy as always in the studio, making some music, checking some mixes, and
Great.
preparing some stuff.
Yeah, always staying busy, especially summertime, I would suppose.
Yeah.
But going to jump right into the questions here, and I'm just going to start with how long have you been producing music?
So I've been producing music from 2006. Uh, I started learning about sequencers and DAWs and various audio processing programs, plugins, standalones, VSTs before that. But generally, I would say some starting point for me was 2006 when I got interested in producing electro. So generally, I would say that was the starting point.
Was it electro that brought made you start producing, or the other way around?
Uh, Generally, always loved electronic music, and as a kid, I was um, having records from my father, and my father taught me all kind of music, not just electronic. But he's mostly a rock guy, funk guy, jazz guy, you know. But
Yeah,
there were some records in his collection that were by Jean-Michel Jarre or Tangerine Dream or some electronic works
nice.
of Herbie Hancock, and I was always like eager to hear more of that sound. But
Hmm.
in the '90s, it was really hard to dig good electronic music. There were several not record, but CD shops in my city, and
Mm.
you go there, you dig, or you ask for recommendation. So I found about the big bands like the Prodigy, Chemical
Hmm.
Brothers, Underworld, and whatever. So the biggest names of the '90s era, but you couldn't scratch the indie names. For indie names,
Yeah.
you had to dig somewhere else. And generally, I'm a music digger nowadays, more or less, because that also requires a lot of time, and
Totally.
yeah, and in that time I was grabbing everything I can find, no matter if it was house, techno, French house, or disco, or Thunderdome, gabber, or
Hmm.
hardcore, or electro. I was generally listening to all kinds of electronic music, and in every electronic music, including drum and bass, jungle, breaks, and whatever, I always tend to find something that is sweet for me. For
Yeah.
example, in jungle, I just love the combination of those organic drums and the wobbly basses in
Hmm.
breaks. I just love the
Oh, me
energy
too.
of the groove and everything,
Yeah, it brings
But
like those drums bring a swing into the bass line.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah, I love
and
it.
when when I got enough knowledge about electro, like in 2004, 2005, I was like, hey, this music, not not every artist, of course, but the variety of this music contains everything that I love in these genres that I was
Hmm.
digging, and I started digging more and more electro, and I was amazed about the diversity of the music. Uh, I wasn't introduced as I wasn't introduced with old school electro. Of course, I knew some
Yeah.
of old school electro. It was played on MTV, VH1, or whatever. Grandmaster Flash, Africa Bambata, even Anthony Rother. The new school electro was played
Hmm.
on German Viva, and in that time in the 90s, I just didn't know what that category, what genre it is. So uh, that was the moment I realized, okay, in 2004, that was the moment when I realized, okay, you opened the Pandora's box here. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
everything is going out so massively, a lot of stuff. So uh, I think the biggest thing that helped me to learn about this music and to understand what electro is I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it's piracy. So
You-
maybe somebody will look it in a bad way, but like everything in life, it has two polarities, minus and plus. So as the
mm,
piracy, so there are bad things
yeah,
about it, and there are good things
that's
about
it.
it. So the good thing is about it is that in that time you didn't had opportunity like now Spotify, YouTube, and every other streaming service to serve you
Hmm.
music playlists and whatever
Yeah.
suggestions, recommendations. You just needed to dig, to dig through labels, through artists. You hear a recommendation from a guy outside of your city. You're inviting a DJ from other country. He gives you a recommendation for some songs, and you share music. So the great tool for my knowledge of music was because of the communities that were doing so. And speaking of a community, I must I must tell you a story now of one community which in 2005 gave me the opportunity to learn about electro and why I felt this is
Huh.
the right
Fantastic.
genre, this is the right thing to produce, to start producing, because uh, there was a Dutch guy who made a DC++ hub. For those who don't know what DC++ is, it's I don't know if it exists yet still, but back in the days it was peer-to-peer file sharing system.
Mm,
So Dutch guy made a private hub for electro,
hmm.
Italo disco, Detroit techno, acid house, IDM, and probably more weird stuff. So to enter that private hub, you had a questionnaire. So it was like a job interview. It was like who produced Planet Rock. Uh, uh, who is the most famous electro band from Germany? Blah 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 stuff, questions like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you needed to have at least some music to share, either if it's
Hmm.
electro, disco, Italo disco, IDM, acid, whatever. So if you if you were lucky and answered the questionnaire by their standards, they will let you in.
Yeah.
So the community there wasn't big, it was like 120, 150 people.
No, yeah. Not many at
Yeah,
all.
but the the really nice part of that was the producers themselves were present on that
Oh,
community,
yeah.
and they were, maybe it's, maybe I don't want to share names. Maybe I could share names. So, but some of the famous producers from the U.S. and the famous producers from Europe were on that hub
Hmm.
sharing their music. Like, yeah, people, here we go.
Wow.
This is my new release. Please share it. So
Wow.
for me, electro music is not only about music, it's about community, it's about sense of
Hmm.
connectivity, and just science, you know. And if you believe in science, you believe in progress, you believe in
Yeah.
your community, you know.
Yeah.
That is electro for me.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So we'll now that we've kind of started to delve into my next question here, I know that a lot of people nowadays are a little confused with what actual electro is, which I think is kind of crazy because it came before techno and house music.
Yeah.
But I think some of the confusion may rely or lie in the fact that people think it's synonymous with just electronic music, and that I think
Yeah.
it almost seems like electro. Correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but it started with more of a subgenre than the actual than just electro. Didn't just I feel like electro funk started, and then electro kind of more developed into a bigger thing after that, more of its own genre.
um, I don't know if developed into a bigger thing.
Oh yeah,
If we are speaking
the
in
pieces
the
came
era of
together. Yeah.
80s, because electrofunk had a commercial blast, and what you're speaking about, it's a slight um, slight mixture with techno. So uh,
Mm,
leaving the organic sound out of electro, you know.
mm,
And I don't say it was influenced by techno. Let's be clear, there wasn't techno back in the days. But what I say when I say techno, it's technology
mm,
actually at that point. So when you hear, for example, some Kraftwerk tunes, they were driven by technology. They
mm,
weren't driven by only by music theory, commercial music, pop music, whatever. Uh, their works is also driven by technology, and I think the experimentation with instruments is what created, let's say, a divided genre from electro-funk.
mm. All right. See,
Uh,
so when when do you feel electro? So in case people aren't know when what time period I'm referring to uh or I think it was 1983. Africa Bambaataa came out with
Planet Rock,
Planet Rock, which
yeah,
is synonymous with being one of the first electro funk tracks.
yeah, yeah. It is. It is probably the most important one. You know,
Mm. When
uh,
when do you feel electro first started to become its own style, really? I guess I should say.
I think for me personally, its own style. It was some sometime between in the mid 80s. Uh, Hashim, the
Hmm.
soul.
Yeah,
So
fantastic
so
track.
so that one is like you have Kraftwerk up,
Hmm.
and
The top.
yeah, yeah, and Hashim, the soul. That record is like the postulate for many other records in the 90s to come. So that record has been sampled. I don't know how many times. You hear the samples of the scratches and of the vocoder,
Hmm.
even nowadays in modern production. So
Definitely.
generally, why I say this track, because it's basically an instrumental track, and it's based on the groove. So it didn't had too much of like a lead melody in the front like Kraftwerk had, or it
Hmm.
had strings, of course, it had strings and melodic parts, but the focus was on the beat and the bass groove, you know. So
Hmm.
for me, Hashim the Soul, that was the starting point for electro, what I can say we know now.
Hmm. And so let's help other people kind of uh define, well, we'll help define electro, I guess, people, because I don't think we've really done that too much yet. um I feel like it's syncopated drums. So there's definitely not a consistent drum beat like you'd find in house music or
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
Heavy saw waves, which, um, if people aren't familiar with, I guess, how would you describe it? Sound like saws, kind of metallic and
It's like a
well,
saw.
yeah. I'm over explaining here. Okay, so so those elements, and then I know that you've told me you feel as though electro music is an organic element, like it's attempting to make an electronic creation seem alive. And if you want
Yeah,
to expand on that, and
yeah,
what
yeah.
else you think?
Uh, yeah, that is the point, you know. So Kraftwerk and there were bands and musicians back in the days who used a lot of electronic equipment, but to be honest, that equipment is nowadays expensive, but it was expensive in that time
Then
as well, you know.
now it's even
Not
more.
yeah, but for example, I've seen 828 when it came out. It was like $3,500. So
Wow.
it's much money for that time. And 909, the successor of 828, the successor of 828. Well, it's a super drum machine. I love it. It's a separate story, but
Mm-hmm.
it was even more expensive, and not everybody could afford. Just those are just rhythm machines with
Mm-hmm.
which we are speaking about. So if we go to like Moog synthesizers, if we go to modular stuff or Eurorex or I don't know the uh, synths of that time, like Yamaha CS80, Yamaha, or some cheaper Yamaha, you know, that the gear was
Mm-hmm.
quite expensive. But to clarify why I'm telling you this is that because the gear was expensive and the big studios could afford that gear.
Mm-hmm.
And who was recording in the big studios? In the big studios, you could find jazz musicians. You can mostly, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
people that are diverse in music theory, that are looking the instrument um, as uh, as something that will create tones, musicality in that.
Mm-hmm.
They were not looking at the instruments like they can create new sounds. On the other hand, you had engineers and people who weren't musically educated, and what their approach to the synthesizer was, okay, let's see what sound I can do with this. So these are generally the 60s and the 70s what I'm speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's really important to know that the both worlds, the musicians of the time and the non-musicians, the engineers of the time, were responsible for the music nowadays, you know. Even if they didn't had intention to do it, they done it, you know. um,
Yeah.
the two worlds used the synthesizers in their own ways. The non-musicians used the synthesizers to create awesome sound effects, and nowadays we have legendary sound designers because of that. For example, Star Wars. the sound of R2D2.
Hmm.
It was created by ARP 2600. It's a semi-modular synth from the 70s, and the guy who was the sound designer who was doing the sound of R2D2, he was actually working 2 years on those sounds. So much
Wow.
work.
Yeah.
It's
What a year. Yeah, I think what the Giorgio Moroder track came out like a month before Star Wars, I Feel
yeah,
Love. So
yeah,
mind blown for a lot of people that year. But
yeah, yeah. That is
mhm.
that is that is the thing. You had a lot of people using the synthesizer in their own way, and now you have Kraftwerk, who said, "Okay, we want to be musical, but we also want to be experimental." And
Mm,
Rukzuk, for example, that is from early 70s. Their release, it's really experimental. So the approach and of course the quality of electronic instruments they had in 70, 71 wasn't at that point like it was in 77, for example.
yeah.
But uh, but how the uh, engineers were making synths better and better with more playability and more oscillators, more filters, LFOs, and different parameters that were installed in the synths have made once called machine into ultimate music machine.
Mhm.
So they used it. Individuals used that machine to replicate, at least to replicate the sonic capabilities of organic sounds.
Mm,
So that is how electronic music started. If you look at the synthesizers, the early ones, for example, uh, let's say the first Yamaha CS synths, uh,
hmm.
they had a they had like I think bank with 8 patches, and those patches were
Wow.
organ, strings, trumpets, cello. So that's it.
Yeah.
Even the engineers tried to replicate the sounds of organic instruments, but if you're creative enough and if you're like Florian or Wolfgang from Kraftwerk or
Mhm.
any of other guys from the band, if you think like them, like, okay, let's modulate this noise and this tone to make a super snare or whatever.
Yeah.
uh, that is the mindset that still stands today for electro producers for most of them. So
Hmm.
it's not about when you produce electro, you don't go from the starting point like, oh yeah, give me something funky, or yeah, give me some
Yeah.
some super strings. No, you start with exploring sounds, with
Hmm.
most of the time with the jam sessions, most of the time with tweaking the synthesizer, the filters, the parameters to gain some live sound. uh, Generally, electro, like it is, it for me it's most alive electronic music, if I can
Mm,
say that.
yeah. I think that's pretty good statement actually. I don't think people would argue that you know techno feels more alive or
The techno
it,
is a different story.
it's
Techno is a
yeah.
different story. It has its really nice stuff inside, but we will talk about it a bit later.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like every style kind of can be described as a space as well.
Yeah,
House music's more of like, I don't know, it fills the
joy,
room.
feeling,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but we can go into that all day. um One other thing I wanted to help um teach our listeners about, which is I know you have training more musical training with Berlin School, right?
Well,
Or
it's
your
I wouldn't say
style?
I wouldn't say it had more, but Berlin School had a lot of impact on me. So the sound of Tangerine Dream is something not very different from Kraftwerk, but it is different from Kraftwerk. So Berlin School is mostly based on melodic and atmospheric soundscapes, drones, sequences, and like let's say uh, progression.
Mm-hmm.
So in Berlin School, the main thing in the arrangement is the progression of the synthesizers, the sequence build-ups and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like something like you can find in progressive rock, for example.
Mm-hmm. Some of
So
the
Berlin School is something really unique in electronic music. You know, not a lot of bands were doing it in the 70s and 80s, but you could find even Italian and Dutch and British musicians influenced by Tangerine Dream. So you have like three most important in electronic music, which came out from krautrock, from German
mm-hmm.
rock. Uh, you have three most important waves. That is Kraftwerk, Tangerine Dream, and Can. So, for example, a lot of people, Can, the band Can,
Mm-hmm.
is not. Uh, it shouldn't be like a spotlight. The band with the spotlight that made kind of electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
But if you analyze their songs, if you analyze what they were doing super stuff that influenced some other waves of German
Yeah.
electronic music, like Absolute Body Control, DAF, or whatever. Uh, Generally, it wasn't liner. It wasn't liner, and it's not just it didn't just happen in Europe. Uh, as I wrote in the uh, reviews, the
Mm-hmm.
electro music in Europe at that time was in theater. And what I said previously about the cost of the synthesizers, that not not everybody could afford it, and only uh, big studios could afford the good equipment. You have the other wave coming from US, and I think even it's im- the importance is the same as the wave from Europe, maybe slightly bigger, because people in the US, my personal opinion is that they understood this music better. I'm speaking of
Mm-hmm.
mostly producers from Detroit, and early producers, early electro and later
Or
techno
Arthur
producers.
Baker and
Yeah, and
Rick Rubin. No, well,
Juan Atkins, Cybertron, and
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm leaving out the
Derek
tops. Yeah.
May. Yeah, Derek May. So the people who actually were jamming in their garages with equipment they could buy, an old Lindrum or restock 808 or whatever, what they
Mm-hmm.
could find. They they weren't. So you see the connection between the main connection between, let's say in this case, Germany and Detroit is, you at that moment you have uh, a devastated country, with youth that wanted to make something better for themselves. And
Yeah, totally.
we all know that from all I would say uh, depressing uh, areas of the world,
Hmm.
the best art comes out,
Yeah,
and it
ironically,
is
yeah.
like that, you know. So what the pioneers in Detroit were doing, they were having a good time.
Hmm.
What is most important, they were having fun, and they were doing this music that was influenced by some bands from Europe, and they played those in the clubs. So they were kind of they made the postulates of the club electro sound.
Hmm.
It is like that, you know. So the scene in US is something what Europe in at that time didn't had, you know. Speaking of the early 80s, uh, soon enough the sound spread in the Europe, and scene was made in Europe, and I somehow get the feeling when the commercial blast of electro in the US started to to chill,
Hmm.
something emerged in Europe, and that
Yeah,
was
definitely.
it was end of 80s and beginning of 90s. Uh, but still, you know, in US you have there are dozens of producers who were started in the mid 80s and continued doing music throughout the decades, like Dynamics 2, Scratch D,
Hmm.
or Aux 88. So some of those US pioneers should be mentioned more. You know, they were really important for driving this sound. The label Direct Beat and many other let's say other labels like tracks that goes into acid house are also responsible for keeping the sound present,
Mm.
underground resistance and whatever. um, Generally, what I feel of electro is what I said previously. uh, it's spread worldwide, and it's like a community, you know. The I I've been doing music for 17 years, and I never seen in any genre of music that kind of collaboration you have with electro artists. So that's something
Mm.
for big respect, you know.
Yeah, that is a good point. It's kind of like the underground kind of
Yeah,
stuff. It's
yeah, it is.
because you meet a techno producer meets another techno producer. It may not be quite as special, but if you both are fans of electro, it might be a little bit different connection.
Yeah, yeah, that's
So,
it.
yeah. Do you
So
feel like the TR 808 is also an integral part of electro?
uh it is, or maybe I should say it was, and it is. um some
Yeah.
producers would say it's overused, overabused. I
Hmm.
could say that as well. I personally love the sound of 808, and
Girl, me as well.
that is something which I cannot explain to people. When you go on a live PA and you hear the 808 like it
The
is,
actual machine and not synthesized through a computer. Yeah,
or you can use it through the computer, but with a
it's
good preamps, uh, the sounds of the snare, the sounds of the kick, it just go through live PA.
yeah, I can only
I
imagine.
love I love 909. I love 707 drum machines. You know, 707 is probably mostly used in the days of disco.
Mm.
505 and 707 and lean drum have the similar sounding kicks, um, but 808, uh, only 808 have that long subby tail, you know.
Yeah.
And
The-
when you hear that on a live PA system, that's wonderful, you know.
mhm.
And I'm, for the listeners to be clear, I'm not speaking about 808 that is used in trap music nowadays. It's not 808. It's over compressed, over EQ'd, over distorted and saturated, and over processed again. You lose the real feeling of the 808 there. So if you're a producer and you're producing trap, if you like producing trap, please do it the clean way, because in the end,
Yeah.
when your song uh, is finished, is mastered, you will have the better sounding on a live PA than you will have with smashed files, smashed kicks, and smashed snares and whatever. So the 808 is really important for the genre, and I'm really happy that a lot of people use the 808 outside of electro. For example, Miles Davis used 808, and
Oh,
I
really?
don't know how many, even big bands, Pink Floyd, and everybody used 808 in their own way. So
Hmm.
it's a one drum machine whose sounds you can sculpture in a way to sound unique and every time blasting, you know. But one
Yeah.
thing is for sure: no matter how much you process it, it will sound like you will get the sense of 808. uh,
Hmm.
I think the importance of 808 is the same as the importance of 707, because there is electro which is done with 707, there is electro done with 909, but somehow 808 got its fame, got its fame for the electro sound.
There you go. I'll start making the electro with the HR that I have now, the 1989 drum machine. I'm I have recreated the reverberated drums from Phil Collins in the air tonight, I think.
Okay.
Even though I think he used a Lindrum for that, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
that's
it's Lindrum.
that's a side point. But so let's focus more on your work. What do you got coming out this year? What are you working on?
So at the moment, I'm preparing Stellar Mode 3. So for a personal label, Stellar Mode. And it's a split project by my friend from Germany, Dagobert. And we're releasing both each both side. So three three tracks each. It's kind of a mini LP like the last one. But this time, my side is, I would say it is electro, but it is kind of sprinkled with some other flavorful genres like acid, breaks, some
Nice.
junglish, ravish stuff from the
Ah,
90s.
yes.
So generally there is happening a lot. Recently I got new babies out there, new speakers.
Oh
So
yes.
yeah, that was just
Jealous.
recent, month and a half ago. So I'm still in the process of learning these babies. It's a completely new sound for me. It's a three-way speaker now, so much more resolution and depth. Um,
Wow.
and I would I wanted to focus on some of my work outside of stellar mode. uh, I have some acid tunes that I would love to put out, but I think that will happen by end of the year. You know, when I finish compiling the Stellar Mode 3 for pressing.
Nice. I'm excited for that. I've got 1 and 2 stellar mode, and I think when you're working with Dagobert, you guys make some magic happen. It's good.
Yeah, he's an awesome producer, So he's my one of my biggest influence. Uh,
And that's awesome. You get to
my
work with him. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can step back to the story from the beginning and say like in 2006, in 2005, I found about this label, Dominance Electricity,
Hmm.
and I was amazed about with the sound of Dagobert as bass ship and the Imatron Voima, that's a duo from Finland and or Norway. I I can't recall now. And some other people releasing on the label, and I was like, "Hey, what's this? This has funk. This has soul. It has groove. It has darkness. It has space. Everything is
Everything
there.
great.
Yeah, what's this?" And they were putting out a new EP by Mandroid. Uh, if you didn't listen to Mandroid, please do. His music is fantastic. It's you know when people say nowadays you have that future funk music,
Yeah.
and no, that is not future funk.
That's
Mandroid is future
right.
funk. Trust me, Mandroid is future funk. And if this is the
Mandroid.
tip, he has an LP called Future Funk. Please serve your ears. It's
Oh yeah.
pure sonic bliss of 808 and Oscar synth. It's top notch LP. So when I found about the label, uh, I was going through their discography, and while I was waiting for my order of Mandroid Future Funk to arrive, I was so eager to I want to listen to it now. So I bumped on a guy on Soulsick with all the files, and I was like, "Ooh,
Oh.
what's this?" So in the end, it was the label owner,
Ah,
and from that point, I started speaking uh, with him, and Matthias. He's probably one of my mentors, and people who kind of pushed me to get better. I really wanted to get to the point at some point to release for Dominance Electricity, and I was really pushy. I was sending my promos to Matthias all the time those years, and he had really enough patience and time to correct my errors and to give me more
ah,
insight and inputs of what should I do with my sounds. Um as I said, he was a mentor, and
it's great.
I kind of sculpted my sound into the sound of Dominance Electricity. And the sound of Dominance Electricity is sculpted by Dagobert. So what I told you, it's when I found about this label and the sound they are doing, and to describe the sound to the listeners, if I can say it in a sentence, for me it was the best fusion of old school and the new school electro music, and that is something which I really liked, to hear reverb, organic drums, to have some space, something
Yeah.
happening, not just here mono, but
But
here in front, in the back, so some music that will have a complete sound stage that will satisfy your, I don't know, needs for melody, for rhythm, for bass, for groove. Uh, I released in 2009 for Dominance, and that same year, I was a manager, let's say a booking agent for Exit Festival on in Serbia. Exit Festival, it's generally the biggest festival in the region here in the Balkans. Maybe Ziget is
Ah, cool.
bigger, but I'm not sure. I think Exit is bigger than Ziget. Anyway, so those years were really like a golden years of the festival. There were like 20 plus stages, and my friend and me, direct control, he's from north Serbia. We had opportunity to organize 2 days for out of four for Electrana stage. Electrana, uh, well, it's stupid to say Electrana on with a American accent.
Like,
Electrana, and
yeah.
what is Electrana? It's a power plant. It's Kraftwerk. So
Mm.
Electrana, it's our Kraftwerk, but it was a stage, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, it was a stage for about 2,000, 3,000 people with enough space to
Hmm.
dance. It
It's
can
pretty
be
good.
packed. Yeah, it could be packed like with maybe 5,000, but then it will be really tight.
Shoulder to
Uh,
shoulder.
so it was like a fifth or sixth s- stage in the terms of capacity on the festival. Of course, the main stage capacity is, I think, 40,000 people. I'm not sure about the numbers now. Anyway, so that year, 2009, Zoran, control, and me invited Dagobert to play on the festival. So it was like 4 days ago, 4 days and 13 years ago from this moment, you know. Uh, that is the point when we met Dagobert, and
It's the moment.
we could, yeah, we could share some our musical experience and musical visions and thoughts about music. And it was the first time and probably the only time for now in my life that I met a person who's not music not music taste, but music perception is on the level like I am, you know.
No.
So year later, I went to his place in Germany. He was still having an analog studio with he had some Rolands and Yamaha. The main synth he used was Roland JX 1080. He had some different modules, effectors. I can't recall the all of them, but the main thing was his Akai MPC 2000, and I went to his place, you know, to do some music. And when I saw the dude, what he was doing on that Akai, you know, he's an old school producer. Started
Hmm.
doing music in 91, I think, and when I saw what is he doing on that Akai, I was like, "Whoa, what's this?" The guy, the guy killed my will for production, you know. So he set somehow he set the standards for me, for my music, for my production, and everything I do with the music. And nowadays, with full confidence, our collaboration is stronger than ever, and I really feel glad, and I'm really happy that both of us have grown into each other have grown into a specific direction of perceiving the music in
Mm.
electro, of electro music, and he's he's the better composer. I'm the better audio engineer. So combined together, I think we
Force to be
may,
reckoned with.
yeah, we make something really unique in the electro scene. Um, it's a sound of Carlson. It's the sound of Dagobert. It is the sound of dominance electricity, but it is the sound of stellar mode. So, like every musician, we all grow up, we all learn from our previous work, we all get inspired by various things in our life. If it's a good meal or if it's a mountaintop with a night sky full of stars, it doesn't matter. You get you just get
Yeah,
inspired out of things.
yeah, love
Yeah,
it. Well, I think that's a good place to start playing some of your tracks here. I think we've got was it Luminous Horizons?
yeah. Luminous Horizon. It's an interesting one. Maybe you can let me tell a story,
Yeah,
so the
for
listeners
sure.
have a bit of input of what I've intended to do this. I think I mentioned some details previously, but anyway, here it goes. So I was into like, hey, I will have some fun. I want to make some boom bap hip hop, some easy stuff, and it was not the first time, but I usually don't sample things, but in the boom bap you need to sample, that's the boom bap
That's
is all about sampling,
yeah, yeah.
so I was listening to some old rock and funk records, and I got these super cowbells and super toms and some drum samples out of one rock record, and I was starting with the boom bap. 12 hours later, I was rocking hard with 122 BPM, acidish, ravish, electro, Balearic, 5 sunrise or whatever. So it's a track that came completely out of the box. It most of my work get out completely out of the box. I'm not thinking of some reference track or
Hmm.
something of specific style or something. It's just like a jam session before I start sculpting the track. Uh, anyway, if you want to play it, do it. Hope the listener,
Oh, we're
the
going
list,
to.
yeah, hope the listeners will like it.
So, thanks for your time today, Kalson. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure and not a surprise that that we've gone as long as we did.
Yeah, it was pleasure to speaking with you, Stuart, and hopefully this isn't our last chat.
Hopefully not.
Yeah,
All right, take care.
take care. Thank you, buddy.